It's the official show on the Fish Stripes podcast. Eli Sussman here to welcome in a special guest. The Beloit Snappers are soon to be the high A affiliate of the Miami Marlins, expected to sign their MLB professional development license in the coming weeks. That will officially mark the beginning of a 10-year partnership. So, to help familiarize us with the team, its history, and several key changes on the horizon, I'm joined by Ben Whitkins. Ben is the co-organizer for the Save Snappy petition, which we'll be diving into shortly. He's also a Beloit, Wisconsin native, a passionate Beloit Snappers fan, and for a very brief time, he wore the Snappy mascot costume himself. So I know he has an incredible perspective on all things about what this team is and what it means now that they're going to be affiliated with the Miami Marlins. So thank you for coming on the show, Ben. I hope your new year is off to a great start.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope your year is off to a great start as well.
So, as I told you before we started recording, we need to go through the very basics about what Beloit is, about where it is. I mean, we're in 2021 where people can obviously Google Beloit, Wisconsin in a second and find out where on the map it is, but we want to understand what the city is like. Well, knowing that you were born and raised down there, and that Marlins players are going to be spending their summers down there. Just about every Marlins prospect is going to be passing through Beloit at some point. And hopefully, Marlins fans are going to be visiting to see games at the ballpark and understand what the community is. I mean, you're the best person to ask. What is it about Beloit that you love growing up? What makes it unique from other communities?
Yeah, so great question. Beloit is a wonderful town of about approximately 37,000 people, and it's right on the Wisconsin and Illinois border, like literally on the border. So, and that's exactly where the stadium is going to be. So, it's a racially diverse town. It's a town that experienced some trouble with industry leaving around the turn of the century, but over the last several years, it's really undergoing this incredible revitalization. Um, uh, like sushi restaurants and high-end burger places and industry is moving in. It's becoming like this tech hub. It's just there's an international film festival, believe it or not. There's just don't sleep on Beloit. It's really kind of a cool city, and if you ever want to make the trip out, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with all the fun things there are to do there.
And my understanding from following along what you've been doing with the River Rockers, and we'll be getting into that shortly, is that that the team has been a part of your life for almost all of your life. Could you tell us, growing up? I know uh, way back in the day was affiliated with the Brewers, and since then the Twins and the A's. But when did your connection with the team start? I mean, how old were you when you started attending games? Who are some of the players that you remember passing through? Either players that went on to be major league stars or just players that were special down there in Beloit and stick
Mhm.
out to you in your memory?
Yeah, so I grew up attending Beloit Brewers games, and eventually they became the Beloit Snappers in 1995. You always attending at a very small community field. Pullman Field was what it was called, and very very uh, not an extravagant or really amazing stadium by any stretch of the imagination, but a really great community stadium. And my brother, who's also on our small team of people working on this Beloit River Rockers movement, he started working there running the scoreboard. So as a younger brother, I thought that was the coolest job in the world, and I was also inspired to eventually work for the team when I became a teenager, and that was basically my summer job throughout high school. I sold Dippin' Dots in the concession stand, and I was Snappy the Turtle himself. I was the mascot, as you mentioned, and just had a ton of great memories at the stadium. I'd say my favorite all-time Beloit snapper would easily be Prince Fielder. He came through there, and he was on their 2003 squad, and it was just an awesome squad of Prince Fielder, Ricky Weeks, and Tony Gwynn Jr. And I was just a huge Milwaukee Brewers fan at that time. So it was like heaven on earth to to see that up close and personal.
Right. And I guess in total, the affiliation started way back in 1982.
Right.
So almost 40 years of history with the city. And I mean, obviously, this year, so much has been uprooted. All the plans that people thought they had when it came to minor league baseball have been shaken up by the pandemic, COVID-19. Um, but even before like the pandemic was even on even something that entered people's minds, I think people that followed minor league baseball closely, either of course in Beloit, but even myself and anybody that covers prospects pretty consistently knew that a restructuring was on its way, or the way all of minor league baseball was headed, and of this consistent desire by MLB to reduce the number of teams flatly, just in order to save money in certain ways, in order to upgrade facilities. I mean, a lot of motivations that went into it, but considering where Beloit is, just how I guess far removed it is from conventional huge population centers, and uh, at what point, how much concern was there among people in Beloit about with the end of this professional baseball agreement last year about losing the team? I mean, the fact that it had been in the
Yeah.
community for so long, and we just saw with Marlins affiliate in the Midwest League for 1 year, they were with the Clinton Lumber Kings, and the Lumber Kings, as many unfortunately predicted, they got phased out
Right.
and weren't part of this restructuring. I mean, how much concern was there in Beloit when this big decision was coming,
Yeah.
and just what did they try to do in order to save the team?
Right. So this ties into our new owner, Quint, or our excuse me, the team's first ever owner, Quint Studer, and this is where his involvement really comes into play, and why as a community we're so incredibly appreciative of him, because quite frankly, Boyd in baseball, for all intents and purposes, was dead. As I kind of alluded to earlier, Pullman Field was a very it wasn't a great stadium. I mean, there's really no way to say it. Didn't have like great amenities. It was old. It was outdated, and it just absolutely would have been on the chopping block, just like unfortunately Clinton was. However, Quinn Studer stepped in along with Diane Hendricks, another extreme, actually the richest self-made woman in the United States, I believe. Just an incredibly, it was a great union, those two coming together. And what they did was they invested in this new stadium downtown, which is going to be state of the art, ABC Supply Stadium, it's called. And what they did was they built that stadium to a T by MLB's specifications. So MLB was like, MLB wants good facilities. They want good locker rooms. They have lots of things that they really care about. So what Diane Hendricks and Quinn Stewart did was they built the stadium absolutely up to MLB specifications. So it wasn't necessarily a surprise, because MLB would they'd be kind of crazy to not go forward, given the fact that they built this state of the art stadium.
Right. And I guess you're being pretty blunt about Pullman Field and some of its limitations, but I've seen the mock-ups of the new replacement ABC Supply Stadium. They also have that live camera set up to actually monitor the construction progress going on with that. You can see from looking at minor league baseball records that attendance at Pullman had been slipping the past few years, even based on where it was earlier in the 2000s. I mean, the last 5 years, averaging about 1,000 fans per game, which even by Midwest League standards was pretty low. I was just wondering if you could be more specific about what you thought the limitations of the fields was, and what do you think? How are those going to be addressed in the new stadium, just based on what you've seen? Because
Hmm.
I guess that's the yeah, what I'm wondering is when you see that low attendance, at least on paper, that games had in Beloit in recent years, uh, do you think that's going to be fixed pretty immediately by the new stadium, or are there other factors in play?
I do. I think that just the new energy of the state of the art stadium, and it also being right in the heart of downtown, I think that alone is going to really increase attendance. So I'm really, really excited about that. Pullman Field, as I have alluded to now several times, the product got stale. It was kind of a hard to get to stadium in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Now with ABC Supply Stadium, it's going to be right in the heart of downtown. You get drinks, you get dinner with your family and friends, and you meander over to the stadium. It's going to be a totally new environment with a lot of new energy and life infused to it, thanks to Quinn Studer and the Miami Marlins and everyone on those levels.
Right. And with this construction of the new stadium, Quint Studer has come up with this idea to use this opportunity to rebrand the Beloit Snappers for the first time in, as you said, 25 years. And I know that's been an issue that you've been really focused on and have come up with some great alternatives too. And I I mean, based on my understanding, of course, as I said, the pandemic has shifted things out of focus, but it seems that they're on a trajectory that the stadium could be done later this year, but potentially not in time for opening day, where it would be a situation where they transition during the
Yeah,
season. Yeah, I suppose that stuff is still a little bit up in the air, but whenever they
yeah.
make that transition, um, planning to rebrand, and I mean, at least from what Quint Studer has been saying, is there any particular reason why they're so committed on rebranding and changing? Is Do you think it's just mainly focused on the revenue boost that comes with new merchandise and a new logo and all that, or is there any particular desire from
That's
the community to actually change?
that's a great question. Um, the messaging from the ownership is that merchandise sales is a critical revenue stream to a successful minor league operation, which makes total sense. And the Beloit Snappers merchandise sales were very poor. So naturally, they believe that a rebrand will improve that. So that's the mindset that they're going forward with. And Quinn Studer has actually been successful rebranding a minor league team in the past, as he has done with the Pensacola Blue Wahoos. So he has that as in his back pocket as really relevant experience that he's bringing forward here. However, when they so what they did was, when they announced that they were going to rebrand the team, they worked with a San Diego-based marketing company, and they conducted this uh, contest. Basically, they called it a fan vote. And then at the end of that, they announced 5 finalists that they were choosing from. And the 5 finalist names were the Cheese Balls, Moo, Poca Pike, Sky Carp, and Supper Clubbers. So um, there was instantly a huge revolt in the community because the names felt off. And the
Mhm.
reason why they were off is because I'm sure you don't know this, but I'm going to mention it. Beloit has a really deep relationship with turtles. There's these turtle burial mounds that are on the Beloit College campus right now, and that really shaped the whole community. The town used to be called Turtle Village, and these mounds were the inspiration for the Beloit College logo. The team plays at the confluence of Turtle Creek and the Rock River. There's Turtle Creek Bookstore right by the stadium, Turtle Tap, a nearby bar, the Turtle Township. I mean, the town is turtle obsessed. So when you kind of completely take that out of the equation, and not only do you kind of take the turtles out of the equation in a meaningful way, you give us these really kind of lazy Wisconsin cliches. Moo, for example, like, I've never milked a cow, I've never shoveled manure, but it almost feels like that's what the San Diego marketing company thinks we all do in Wisconsin. Same with polka. It's like an outdated European music, genre that doesn't really resonate. Sky carp sounds like sky crap, or it easily could. So it felt off, and that was the inspiration for us starting a petition, which really quickly got thousands and thousands of signatures, and that ultimately led us down the road to coming up with the compromise of the River Rockers.
That's right, and that's kind of how you drew my attention in the first place, is this compromise you came up with, uh, in I guess, in your own words from the petition. As much as fans have always loved our badass turtle logo, we think most would probably agree that after 25 years, it was probably due for a modern update. And
Yeah.
here we have the River Rockers, where in the middle of all of it, you have Snappy, you have that turtle mascot. And I mean, for people watching on our YouTube channel, they can see all this. And if you're visiting this on fishstraps.com, they can see some of the artwork that you and I guess some of your friends have put together, really honestly professional level actual renditions of what this rebrand would look like, where it still involves Snappy. And right here, integrating those other names that the firm has suggested, getting them involved in this animal band, this
Right.
mascot band. And I mean, the kind of detail that you put into this is just incredible. These little bios that you put together for the band members, for Sky Carp and Mr. Cheeseball, Polka Pike,
Mhm.
Brewster, and Snappy. I mean,
Because what this movement is about compromise, because we want the same things as the team. We want the team to be successful, so we're trying to meet in the middle, so it's like, can we save Snappy? Can we incorporate the names you've proposed? Can we come up with some sort of grand solution here that satisfies the fans by keeping Snappy, but also gives the ownership a lot of new merchandise opportunities? So that's really the goal. And in addition, I don't think it can be understated that River Rockers play in Rock County, along the Rock River. So it all kind of works together.
it certainly does. I mean, this part got me best of all, these signatures, these rock star signatures for each of the characters.
Yeah, this was great. We had a supporter emailed these to us. So he came up with the snappy one, which he called the snappy graph. And then I said, hey, these are great. Can you do the rest? And he didn't disappoint. So really fun, and it just shows we're a community thing, and we're taking suggestions from the community and all that. So it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, and an alternate logo for the team using a
Mhm.
guitar.
Yeah, this
Pretty
was
bold.
I leveraged some graphic designer friends of mine to help out, and it's been a real collaborative effort.
Yeah, putting these mock logos on a hat. And of course, nothing's complete without the uniforms themselves, alternate
Yeah.
uniforms as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We did it all. We got home whites, alternates, uh, all sorts of fun things.
Yeah, I mean, the level of detail is yeah, it's pretty incredible on all that.
I'm
And
glad you think so.
yeah, and I think the Marlins players would appreciate it as well, because of course the Miami Marlins themselves, they rebranded just a couple of years ago. Not um, I mean, the name of the team has stayed the same since 2012, but when in the first full year after Jeter took over, entering the 2019 season, they switched up their color scheme.
Hmm.
Um, Feeling that the initial one, I guess there's some parallels to be drawn between the Marlins and Beloit, because when the Marlins shifted from Florida to Miami, entering 2012, entering their new ballpark, after playing in that football stadium for the first couple
Yeah.
decades of their existence, the rebranding that they did was it was I'm trying to be polite. I guess at the time, people didn't, there wasn't as much of an outcry, but very soon into its existence, it just felt so tacky and so lacking in authenticity. Because what they did is they leaned into the fact that Miami is a very colorful place, a very exotic place. And their solution to that, the way that they wanted to convey that in the brand, was just piling as many different colors into the brand scheme as possible. I think at one point they had 5 actual colors within their official brand scheme. And the way it blended together, it just, I mean, it didn't work on the field. I guess that's always the big thing at the major league level, where competitiveness is so important, that on the field, when the team was losing, people start nitpicking about everything. But
Mhm.
it wasn't authentic to what Miami was. Of course, as people listening to this know, uh, the team was being run by Jeffrey Loria and his stepson, who did not have any sort of real roots in Miami. They were both from New York, original New York, and actually, I believe his stepson David Sampson was from Wisconsin. But either way, that's even probably more detached from actual Miami values and what the fans wanted themselves. And um, I do wonder how long that would have lasted if the ownership didn't sell, a few years later. But that was one of the first orders of business when Derek Jeter and Bruce Sherman and their group took over, is switching up the color schemes, actually asking their fans. They went through this process called Demilo, where they actually asked fans to give specific reasons why they wanted to see color scheme changes, getting a lot of input, and ultimately arriving at a solution where the new colors, which are red and caliente red, midnight black, marlin blue, and slate gray. I believe those are the four now, but actually like finding some significance in those colors and actually having a reason for the font they chose, for the combinations they chose. And I think even now it's not a unanimous approval for the rebrand that they did, but that just seemed to be maybe like a world of difference into what they came up with. The fact that they actually got input from the community about it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Man, so much goes into a rebrand like that, and logos, and there's so many opinions, and there's so much passion wrapped up in it. There's like do we go to back to the black and teal? Do we do something totally new? Do we like try to honor our history somehow? There's so many opinions, and I don't envy those designers who have to make those calls.
Right. I mean, in the Marlins case, they're still catching some flack for not incorporating enough teal, because teal was that distinctive color that their
That
new
was like the
blue.
look of the 90s. That and the Charlotte Hornets and like a couple other just iconic looks from the 90s. I personally love, although I know they can be a little bit divisive for people. Some of them think it's kind of tacky or dated.
Yeah, there's still some occasions during the season where they do throwback nights, and they've done some teal inspired remixes since then that have been very popular. Of course, the Marlins did win one champion. They won two championships
Yeah.
during the Florida days, but it was really in the '97 team. That was the team had that leaned into the teal more than any other,
Mm-hmm.
and that particular team is the one that really changed baseball forever in Miami. The fact that they won championships so early in their
Yeah.
existence. And so there's still, even when you get the rebrand right, or you feel you get it right, there's always going to be voiced opinions about what you could do differently, what you still need to do. And I mean, for the moment, some of that conversation has quieted down. I mean, something that had been really expected at this point, the fact that the season upcoming in 2021 won't be quite as long as what we're used to uh, in minor league baseball, where I mean, traditionally for all these full season affiliates, it's been 140 games per season, and maybe they get all those dates in this year, but the start date is going to be delayed with all the continued decisions that need to be made about the pandemic and about vaccinations and about how to get in-person attendance and gate revenue back to where it used to be. That the start date for all minor league levels below AAA is probably going to be in May, at the earliest, potentially Memorial Day or a little bit after that. In some ways, a bummer that you have to wait longer for actual baseball games. But I mean, just from my casual research, it does seem that April in Beloit is could be difficult for players to go through with all the cold, and potentially by pushing it back later into the calendar year, that it'll be a more comfortable environment for players to play in and potentially for fans to attend. Is that something that actually jives with the reality that some of those April nights aren't going to be missed quite as much as
It,
dates later in the season?
no, yeah, it's cold. It is cold, and those April nights can be cold. I recommend stocking up on lots of River Rockers sweatshirts and jackets if you get the chance, because yeah, it's brutal. So pushing, and that is definitely one benefit of the later starts for sure. It's going to be a lot warmer.
Yeah. Potentially shifting dates. I mean, this is all still very preliminary, but based on Baseball America reporting, they could shift it from May into early October, instead of what is traditionally early April to early September. And I guess the decision they're also making is no playoff games, which I guess was was a big bright spot from the 2019 minor league season with the Marlins. Their Midwest League affiliate in 2019 was the Clinton Lumber Kings. And after the draft, um, the Marlins did a really good job in that draft. A lot of the college players they selected went straight to the Midwest League, and the team caught fire. It made the postseason, and I believe they made it all the way into the actual like championship series for the Midwest League. And that was a bright spot during a year where the major league team lost 105 games, being able to actually in September when the Marlins were already out of the race, being able to follow that playoff run. And that seems to be a casualty of this season where they'll have the regular season running hopefully through late September, early October, but it doesn't sound like they'll actually have a playoff environment to follow. So, I mean, it's a trade off in order to just have baseball at all and to have get those players as many reps as possible to make sure that to make up for a year where so many players didn't really get much development time whatsoever. I don't think we've mentioned it in this conversation, but I know that even though born and raised in Beloit, you are not based in Beloit anymore. Out of town, following the team, in much the same situation that I am with the Marlins, following streaming games and following them that way. I'm curious what your experience is being able to, as someone myself that I keep track of Marlins affiliates using MILB TV and streaming games that way. And one of the frustrations I had with the Midwest League last year and with the Marlins affiliate is it was only a small handful of games over the course of the season that were available to be streamed. In your experience in Beloit, do you know what kind of setup they have in terms of actually broadcasting games on TV, or are there any particular road cities that you think have been able to do that? Because whether I guess in my cases, I'm a little unique in that I'm using these primarily to actually scout and evaluate the players themselves, but even for entertainment purposes, that's going to be so big to grow the game for people outside of Beloit. Um, what can you what can you tell us about the setup that they've had in past seasons? I mean, hopefully across all of minor league baseball, that's going to be a priority to change moving forward now that they have MLB's cooperation. But what do you know about what the setup has been in recent years on the TV
It's
side?
it, it's a great question. Unfortunately, it's going to be a really short answer because I truly don't know too much about that aspect. My relationship with the team has always been live, and I just,
Right.
quite frankly, have never dove into really understanding or searching for ways to watch them online. It's just for better or worse, my baseball viewing is on TV is always for the majors, and it's never been for minor leagues. So that's pretty much all I have
Right.
for that one.
Right. I- I've been optimistic that part of this restructuring, the fact that Major League Baseball is taking a more direct step, and the fact that for all the issues and complaints that people have about the league and some of the choices they've made, they have been pretty incredible when it comes to the quality of the streams. So you've been able to provide for major league games and even for minor league games in the past. And now the fact that they have a more direct financial interest in these teams, maybe they build out that aspect of the broadcast a little bit more in order for us to follow them as closely as possible. One thing I wanted to circle back to when it comes to the names and the rebranding is that even though you've really developed this River Rockers idea, pretty detailed. If it did come to a situation where ownership has a lot of conviction in these finalists that they came up with, the cheese balls, moo, polka pike, sky carp, supper clubbers, is there any one of that group that you find more bearable than the others, that you understanding that you'll be supporting the team regardless no matter what choice they make when
Yeah.
it comes to this situation? Which of those five is the least of
Yeah.
the
So
best of those evils?
yeah, I can break that down. So there's five. The two that I find to be personally, again, I'm speaking just for myself and no one else. The two that I find to be personally the most offensive are the cheese balls and the moo. And I'm gonna break something on this podcast. We heard from a credible source that those names are not in contention.
Ooh,
So that is not a confirmation, but it's a source that we found credible. who reported that to us. So that leaves the Polka Pike, Sky Carp, and Supper Clubbers. And I would say I think the Sky Carp probably to me has the most regional, and it's kind of the most unique. There are a lot of geese on the Rock River, which is Sky Carp is a nickname for a geese, based Canadian goose, and there are a lot of those on the Rock River. Unfortunately, they're kind of known for defecating all over the place, and it's a real problem in Beloit. So that is cause for concern. And again, when you have a name that has Sky Carp, it so closely resembles the word crap, I feel like that's a problem. Supper clubbers, I kind of like it, but it's like Beloit has a problem, or excuse me, baseball a little bit has a problem with attracting young, minority fans. And when you have a team that's in honor of a, supper club where older white demographics tend to hang out, I don't know if that necessarily resonates all
Right.
that well. But don't get me wrong, I love supper clubs. But yeah, so I don't know. I'd say it's kind of a tie between Sky Carp, Polka Pike, and Supper Clubbers for me. I'd say those are my top three, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Right. It could be all this could be a diversion. The fact that Marlins fans went through this actually pretty recently with the Wichita, where of course Marlins had an affiliate in New Orleans for about 11 years that used to be the New Orleans Zephyrs. They rebranded to the New Orleans Baby Cakes.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm
that
familiar, and it didn't go too well.
Nope, nope. Within a couple of years after the rebrands, they picked up the team and they moved to Wichita. I mean,
Right.
part of that, a lot of that was tied to the facilities. They did not, for a AAA team especially, the facilities in New Orleans just were not adequate, and they were able to actually get public funding on a new stadium in Wichita to build a new team. They had this process in which uh, the initial phase was that they got public feedback on suggested names. They said reportedly they got upwards of 600 names that they took seriously, submissions from Wichita as to what to rename the team. But instead of acknowledging which of those submissions were like among the finalists, what they did is they did a rollout every 2 weeks during the fall preceding the rebrands, where they showed one of the potential nicknames along with a logo of that nickname. And then they went silent. 2 weeks later, they came out with a new logo and a new suggested nickname, and then went silent. Overall, they came up with 6 finalists, and all the 6 finalists that had some sort of like regional significance. But then, as we got later into the winter and they finally did the big reveal, they landed on Wichita Wind Surge, which was not at all any of the names that they'd been teasing throughout
Interesting.
the whole process. So they teased the
Interesting.
names, and I think even when they did those finalists, and even when they were teasing them, and they gave a whole backstory as to what the name would be referring to, but then they went in a different direction. The name that they came up with, and in their case, they collaborated with a professional. It wasn't a full brand as I know that they're doing in Beloit. It was with an individual, Todd Random, who has a long history
Yeah.
when it comes to logo design and
Hmm.
rebranding.
Yeah, I'm
But it was the
familiar with
same
him.
sort of thing, yeah, where he was not based in the town itself. He did his best to come up with a name and a design that reflected the community, but the reception was probably lukewarm at best in terms of what the final decision was. But just throwing that out there, I'm sure it's crossed your mind that maybe these
Yeah.
finalists aren't real finalists at all, that maybe it's just something to stir the pot
We
while we wait.
our team has considered every possible scenario at this point. It's kept us up at night. There's so many ways that they could go. We truly don't know, and unfortunately, we used to be in somewhat periodic conversation with the owners during the initial phase of this when we were doing our Save the Beloit Snappers campaign, and I had a really great hour-long conversation with Quinn Studer, and we sent him some presentations, and he responded, and but since then we've gone kind of dark, unfortunately. I'd love to get communication back going with the organization because yeah, I would love to know what potentially is in store. I wish I had more insightful things to say, but I truly don't know. Are they going to go with one of these five they mentioned? Are they seriously considering our proposal? Are they going to go with the Beloit Snappers? Is there a new name coming up down the pike? Really, no idea. But it's going to be these next couple months are going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, for the time being, I can tell you that the general Marlins fan is pretty satisfied with the fact that all their minor league team nicknames have a fishy, amphibious animal relationship. That there's a
Yep.
vague connection when it comes to from the bottom
Yeah.
up: the Jupiter Hammerheads, the Beloit Snappers, Pensacola
Yeah.
Wahoos, and now the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, who were the Jumbo Shrimp and the Hammerheads have been affiliated with the organization for a while now, but both Pensacola and Beloit are new. And I guess just to be clear, in case we haven't emphasized this already, Quint Studer owns Pensacola as well, and I believe it's it's not much of a guess to conclude that it's not a coincidence that Pensacola and Beloit both ended up uh, in the same organization. That
Hmm.
that potentially that was intentional in order to just I think that's easiest for everybody involved. The fact that the Marlins uh, know exactly who they're partnering with and what to expect from their
Yeah.
affiliate. The fact that just this past year, even we didn't have a minor league season yet. I know that minor league teams were still busy doing creative things, and that's especially true for Pensacola, which was named by Baseball America as the minor league organization of the year for 2020, with some of the unique events and philanthropy that they did during this year that was taken off. So it's on both accounts, both Beloit and Pensacola. It's those are really good additions for where the Marlins are hoping to go
Yep.
with their player development. We've referred to the petition that you have going, Save Snappy, that as of this recording, over 3,500 signatures out of a 5,000 signature goal. So I hope this pod helps you get towards the finish line when it comes to that, even just a little bit, for especially for people that had no opinion on this subject
Yeah.
before listening. I'm sure this will help sway them just a little bit.
It's also a great place to go for your listeners. They don't even have to sign the petition, but you can just go there and read all the updates because we post all our periodic updates, maybe every couple days or so. So it's a place you can go and read everything you want to know about the Beloit River Rockers movement and more. Just go to Save Snappy Petition on change.org and then select the updates tab, and boom, it's all there for you.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll have that link, of course, in the podcast description. If you're seeing this on our article at fishstripes.com, it'll be there as well. Any place else that you want people to follow you for updates, either for the rest of this rebranding process or during the season? What's the best place for people to follow along?
The best place is our Facebook and Twitter, which you can follow at Beloit Rockers for both. And I think we have a really, really fun social presence. We're constantly pumping out concept uniforms to consider, as you alluded to earlier. We have uh, we're getting endorsements from community leaders, and we post fun merchandise ideas and things to consider. We're constantly engaging with fellow bloggers such as yourself, such as others. And it's a real fun feed. So very interactive, and we communicate a lot with our supporters.
Yeah, yeah, pretty consistent with memes as well, editing
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Snappy onto whatever
we got
applies to the
memes,
situation.
we got videos, alternate logos. It's a lot, and we're having a good time with it. And we hope the ownership is taking notice of this movement we got building, and we hope they give us a fair shot.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't overstate like how important this affiliation is. The fact that being at the high A level is traditionally a level in minor league baseball where every single prospect goes there on their way to the majors. Everybody from uh,
Yeah,
I mean, famously in recent years, Juan Soto played about 2 games at high A before he was promoted directly to the majors. But in most cases, the Marlins, for example, in 2019, their top draft pick, JJ Bleday, they made the bold decision to start his professional career at the high A level. But even that was like a pretty big anomaly where in most cases they start slightly under that and then work their way up to high A before being seriously considered for a major league promotion. everybody is going to be passing through that. And I mean,
Can't wait.
this is something we've been speculating about a lot on Fish Stripes now that it's been so long without minor league baseball, where exactly these players are going to be deployed. And I mean, the best that we could come up with, this from my friend Daniel DeVivo, who hosts his own Marlins related podcast, Swimming Upstream. He thinks a number of the draft picks from 2020 are going to end up in Beloit for most of the 2021 season. Kyle Nicholas, Zach McCambley, Jake Eater, these are all starting pitchers that could be really fast movers through the organization after pitching in college. And you'll learn pretty quickly with the Marlins that at this point in their history, they are stacked when it comes to outfielders at every level of the organization. They have outfielders with incredible tools. And especially at Beloit, we think a lot of their power hitters are going to go there. Peyton Burdick, who had an incredible 2019 season. Connor Scott, who was a former first round pick in 2018. Cameron Meisner, also from the 2019 draft. And Griffin Conine is a guy that we're very excited about. He is the son of Jeff Conine,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Marlin.
I was about to say, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was drafted originally by the Blue Jays, but just this past summer, the Marlins kind of went out of their way to trade for him. And he's someone that he was in the Midwest League in 2019. He was right up there among the home run leaders in the league, but he still has some holes in his game that they'll want to work out and see exactly where he goes. So those are some of the guys that I know Daniel is projecting to potentially either start there or at least spend the majority of their season in Beloit. And I mean, it's at a point where not just now, where the Marlins have one of the better farm systems in baseball, but that's going to be priority for in perpetuity because knowing that there are some sort of budget constrictions at the highest level, there's always going to be a limited number of free agents that they can bring in, that they're relying so much on homegrown
Right.
players to actually rise all the way up through their system and become core players at the major league level. So if you want to see them first, in most cases, you'll want to go down to Beloit yourself and actually get a front row seat with that continued question, as we said earlier, about how many of their games are actually going to be available to watch on TV. That to get the best look at them, might as well show up to ABC Supply Stadium and get that view perspective of it.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome experience, and hopefully, if the team goes forward with our idea, it's going to be a rock concert atmosphere while you're there. There's going to be in-game DJs. There's going to be uh, a rock band, Snappy's rock band jamming in right field, and when there's home runs, they're going to be walking around signing autographs for the kids. It's going to be, we just want it to be just an absolutely fun atmosphere, and you rattling off all those players that they have coming up. It's so exciting to think about because I've heard firsthand or I've read about, I should say, how incredible the Marlins farm system is. So the high degree of talent that the fans are going to see, combine that with an incredible in-game experience, man, that could be awesome for both ownership and fans.
Yeah, best case scenario, we might be 4 months away from that starting. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Maybe it's a year away. I mean, some of this being out of our hands with COVID
I
19.
know, I know.
But
That's the big buzzkill. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just it's
all you
so
can do, all
the
you can
the the
do.
the waiting is the hardest part, as Tom Petty said, and just the uncertainty is just so unfortunate. I hate that piece of it.
Yeah, but whenever we get through this, Beloit seems totally prepared to really knock it out
Yeah,
of the park and put on a great
we're
experience.
we're ready to rock and roll, to use a very corny, shameless plug there.
So everybody listening, make sure to sign the petition, the Save Snappy petition, and just incredible insight here from Ben Whitkins about where the team has been, where it is now, where it's going. And yeah, we're just getting anxious to see it all starting up. I know you've been busy with spreading the word about this movement, this resistance, and but all it's all in good fun, and that's kind of what drew me to it in the first place. Is that yeah,
It
you
definitely is, and that's, I'm glad you brought that up because that's like a big misconception. I want to just briefly touch on that. We are not at odds with the Beloit Snappers organization, nor are we at odds with Quinn Suter. In fact, we're extraordinarily appreciative of him, and I can't say that enough. I say that in every interview. I say that every chance I get, Mr. Suter, if you're listening, thank you on behalf of the entire Beloit community for saving baseball in Beloit, because without you, it'd be gone. And we will never forget that. The only thing we're trying to do is help this team basically just stick the landing. We think we have a better proposal that is receiving 100% support from the community. It has regional significance. It has merchandise opportunities. It is it could be a killer idea, very unique to minor league baseball. There's not too many rock bands in minor league baseball that I know of. So let's make this happen, and let's have just an awesome next 10 years in Beloit.
Yeah, ready to rock out as soon as
Absolutely.
as soon as conditions allow for it. This is Eli Sussman with Ben Whitkins, episode of the official show, the first show that we've done this year, but plenty more coming throughout the year. Big plans. Maybe not big plans. We aspire to do a whole lot of coverage this year, depending on how many games we actually get to do it for and how many levels of Marlins baseball we can do it for. So check out fishstripes.com, specifically our minor league coverage, fishstripes.com/prospects. And people that follow us on Twitter, always tweeting out updates on these prospects, highlights whenever I can find them. So at Fishstripes on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. We're going to be trying to use a lot more YouTube this year than ever before as well. So subscribe to us over there and turn on notifications. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time. Go Fish.